How's it going, everybody? Welcome to Mueller. Thank you for being here. My name is Chance Higgins. I'm one of the field development managers with Mueller. Today, we are looking at general protocols and professional expectations of our field reps. First up is the dress code. You guys are out in the field, you're working remotely, but we do have to follow this dress code, all right? We are a business casual company. We need some type of collar or polo shirt, whether it's a button down, polo, blouse. Sweaters are fine. And as far as pants go, just really not denim jeans, khaki dress pants. You can wear cargo pants that are khaki material if you have extra things you're taking out of the field with you. It's sort of an appropriate pant there. It's a little bit of a modified business casual a little bit. Be mindful of logos on your clothing. So, you can get a Mueller shirt. Mueller is not going to provide those to you, but if you want to purchase them, you can. Your manager can tell you where to get that information on our website. But other than that, we really want to try to have no logos on our clothing. We are there not to advertise for any other company. We're there representing Mueller as well as the insurance companies we're contracting with. So we want to keep it as plain as possible. The best and the cheapest option was just find some cheap, lightweight, breathable material shirts, $10 a piece. And that way you're kind of all set. Footwear, business casual. We are not in a traditional office setting, so you don't necessarily have to wear dress shoes like this gentleman's wearing. You can wear work boots, which is what I personally would recommend, or sort of like an all-terrain sort of shoe, if you will, just to keep you on your feet. You never know what the terrain's going to be like. Could be muddy, slippery, rocky, steep, snow, things like that. Just wear something that's going to be appropriate. Don't wear any sneakers, no open-toed shoes, no heels, things like that. A dress shoe or dress sneaker or a work boot that's appropriate for the field. Now, your clothing should also be clean. It should fit well. We really don't want to look like we just rolled out of bed. So kind of put yourself together in the morning. Your ID badge is also part of your dress code. Whenever you are completing a survey, this ID badge that Mueller is going to send to you, it's probably already in the mail if you haven't got it already. If you're completing inspection, we got to wear it. Also remember to consider all local weather when you are planning your days. Consider what the weather's going to be like, if it's hot, if it's cold. Take what you need. Following that dress code is mandatory. Failure to do so is not tolerated. It will lead to disciplinary action. If you are caught, again, not following that dress code, it's not going to end well, so hold yourselves accountable. On-site behavior, pretty self-explanatory, but just to kind of go over it here, we need to act as if we are always being watched. And not just watched, but being recorded. Assume that either somebody is home or assume that they've got security cameras recording. Even if they don't, just assume the neighbors do. And assume they also have audio. So just be mindful of what you do and say. No smoking anybody's property. Watch your language. And that's not just curse words, but also just watch how you're talking about somebody's property. We don't want to be insulting in any way. Obviously, don't leave any trash behind. Leave it how you found it, if not better. In this last one, again, just to put it out there, we have gotten videos of this happening. Please, we know you're out in the field. I know emergencies happen. Please do not urinate on anybody's property. Obviously, not tolerated. You also cannot bring anybody with you in the field as a solo gig. So if you got to pick up your kids from school, something happens, they cannot be in the car while you're completing surveys. That means we have to reschedule things. It means we have to reschedule things, but you are the only person in the car when you are actively working. And this last one here on the bottom left, always knock on the door, always ring the bell before proceeding with any survey. Even if you think nobody's home, even if you're told nobody's going to be home, always just assume that somebody randomly is going to be there, and then we need to let them know that we're there. If anybody is there, we are not going to solicit the policyholders in any way. We're not going to pass out business cards for a landscaping service or a tree company or a roofer. We're not going to offer any repairs like painting their fence or anything. We don't want to have any logos on our clothing or vehicles. Again, we're representing Mueller, but not just Mueller, the insurance companies as well. So we want to keep it as professional as possible there. Now, as far as what we can discuss with our policyholders, this says hazards here, but really we don't want to discuss any of our findings at all with our policyholders. We can talk to them about what we're going to be doing and kind of what the survey entails. But if they have any questions about what our findings are, what that means for their insurance policy, we have to direct them to their insurance agent. Their insurance company can answer their questions. We don't work directly for their insurance company, so as a field rep, we don't want to say the wrong thing. Obviously, do not take any photos through anybody's windows. As a field rep, when you go on site, we can do surveys when nobody is home. We can do surveys when people are home. But if somebody is home, somebody home has to be at least 18 years old. You as a field rep cannot be the only adult on site. So if you knock on that door, somebody opens the door and they appear to be under the age of 18. Now, it's a key word there, appears to be under the age of 18. We are not checking IDs. If they look like they're under the age of 18, we're going to assume they are. Now, we can ask, we can say, hey, is anybody home that's 18 or older? If the answer is no, you're leaving that property. We are not doing that survey. We can come back a different time. We can reach out to that policyholder and see if there's a better time to go out there. But you as a field rep cannot be the only adult on site. Now, as far as weather goes, this is a field position, right? We have to be comfortable being outside. You're going to be walking around people's houses. The summer is hot. The winters are cold. Rain or shine, we are generally outside completing our survey. The general rule of thumb is if the U.S. Postal Service can deliver the mail, we can still get out there and complete those surveys. Of course, there are exceptions. If there's any travel bans or state of emergencies, we obviously don't want you guys in those situations. If there's legitimate safety concerns, like let's say the roads are all iced over and it's just not safe to be out there, obviously we don't want you out there. If you get out there to do surveys and there's a major lightning storm going on, probably not the best idea to stick your camera pole 20 feet in the air. So if there's legitimate safety concerns, we don't want you to be out there. If it's just a little bit of rain, we're still going to do those surveys. Another thing to consider is not just your safety, but the quality of the survey. Let's say there's no lightning, but it's just raining so bad that it's going to affect your photos. Your photos aren't going to look good. Probably not a good idea to take those photos. So if there's legitimate safety concerns or legitimate quality of survey concerns, that's when we want to say, okay, maybe we're not going to go out today. The weather's too much. Let's reschedule it for a different day that week. Always be prepared though. Pay attention to that weather forecast. Make sure you have everything that you need. Keep extra water in your car. Have a snow shovel or brushes for your vehicle. Extra clothes for sure. At least have one extra shirt and an extra pair of shoes, right? If you get rained on, you need to put a dry shirt on, you've got one. You can wear sunglasses. The important one just that I'm going to tell you, wear sunblock. You're going to be out there for hours in the sun. Protect your skin. And if there's excessive amounts of snow on the ground, and you're doing your measurements for the surveys, you got to do your diagrams and we have to estimate them. We are still going to complete those inspections. We'll just notate that on the report that we had to estimate rather than using our measuring wheel. Now, as far as parking goes, you are expected as a field rep to park on the street for every single case. Street parking is available. That is where you're obligated to park. There are some cases where it's not viable. If it's a busy street or there's no street parking at all, long rural driveways where maybe you got a quarter-mile dirt road to get back to the house, those instances we can park in someone's driveway. But if we have to, a couple things, make sure that we leave room for someone when possible. We don't want to block anybody in or out. Be willing to move your vehicle if you need to or requested to by the policyholder. And also make sure that you are aware of your vehicle's condition. If you've got a slight oil leak, double check. We don't want to stain their driveway. Try to park on the street whenever possible. Safety. Your safety is our priority. We already talked about that a little bit with the weather. We don't want you guys out there if it's not safe to be out there. Same goes for when you're on site. If you believe that you are legitimately in danger or that there is some impending danger there, leave the property. Leave before the danger gets there. Call your manager. We'll figure it out on the back end, but we just don't want you to be there if there's any legitimate concerns for your safety. With that said, possession of weapons is prohibited. That is weapons of any kind. You cannot carry anything on your person, cannot have anything in your vehicle during working hours. As far as privacy fences go, policy there is if you have a privacy fence and the policyholder's not home or it does not allow us access, we are not going beyond a privacy fence. Privacy fence is a 6-foot tall fence or higher that is designed not to be seen through, designed for privacy. So like your standard 6-foot tall wood fence, that's a privacy fence. 4-foot tall chain link fence, not a privacy fence. 3-foot white picket fence, not a privacy fence. Even if it is 6 feet tall, but it's got those iron bars that are 4 or 5 inches apart, not considered a privacy fence. So non-privacy fences, as a field rep, you are still expected to go beyond if accessible. If they're not locked, we are still expected to go beyond those fence lines and complete our survey. You are not trespassing as a field rep. You have what is called business invitee status that these policyholders agreed to when they signed on the dotted line for that insurance policy. We're not trespassing there, so we are going to be expected to still complete those surveys. Of course, again, safety first. If those gates are locked, obviously we're not hopping any fences or anything. Be cautious of dogs, of course. Obviously, we don't want you in a situation where you might get bit. We also don't want to accidentally let any animals out. Just be careful there. And if you see any dangerous wild animals loose on the property, we're not going to have you even get out of your vehicle. Snakes, deer, coyotes, whatever it may be, depending where you're at, we're not getting out of the car. Take a photo from your vehicle, try to come back at a different time. But if we end up not being able to do it, at least we've got a photo as evidence saying, hey, here's why I didn't get out of the vehicle. Now, if you do somehow get injured while working, contact your manager immediately so we can file that injury report. As far as photos go, major part of our survey is taking pictures, right? Our surveys are essentially useless to our insurance companies if we don't provide good quality photos. You've got to take all your own pictures. We cannot use photos from realty websites like Zillow or Redfin or Realtor.com. You cannot take photos from inside your vehicle unless explicitly allowed, which your cases will tell you. We cannot use photos from previous surveys. Mueller sometimes does the same case year over year, and those cases will be linked to the current survey. You'll be able to go back and look at the photos. We cannot copy and paste those pictures. And the other thing is that we do not want anybody in our photos. So we don't want the policyholder in your photos. We don't want your equipment in our photos. Ideally, no workers. Sometimes it's unavoidable. Like say the house is under major renovations and there's people actively working on it. We want to do our best to avoid anybody in those photos. Definitely do not allow any minors to be in any of your photos because those will be immediately discarded and it'll be sent back to take new ones. Just make sure your photos are clear, make sure they're precise. And what I mean by that is if I'm showing the front of that house, I need the entire front view photograph. We don't want to be cutting off any part of that house to not show a full structure. And your photos need to be done in landscape mode. So you're going to hold your phone sideways rather than straight up and down to take all of our pictures. As far as confidentiality goes, we cannot do surveys if you have had or currently have a personal relationship with that policyholder. If you do, notify your manager so that way they can reassign that case to somebody else. Or say, hey, go ahead. If you give them the circumstances, they may say, go ahead and do it. If somebody that you know on a personal level who maybe has your phone number, maybe somebody who knows where you live, maybe somebody that you may be friends with or related to, conflict of interest, we just can't do those surveys. Also, we cannot accept any gratuities or gifts of any kind. So obviously no money can exchange hands here. So no water, water, no snacks, no food, none of that. We just don't want there to be any reason to think that maybe we were a little bit biased on our reports. Just nothing can be accepted from those policyholders. Also, we're dealing with a lot of personal information. So these bottom 2 bullet points here just limit the discussion of all past and present surveys to Mueller staff only. And if you do print out any paper copies, which you do not need to, make sure you are disposing them properly to protect that private information. As far as hours go, we've got 2 sets of hours. We'll go with field hours first. So as a field rep, you'll be out in the field Monday through Friday, 9 to 7, or loss of daylight, whatever comes first. So in the colder months, sun goes down sooner. We'll have to pack it in sooner. Saturdays 10 to 4. Typically, you cannot schedule any appointments or anything outside of these operating hours. But there is a little bit of wiggle room here. So just to give you one example, let's say I'm calling somebody to schedule an appointment for Monday at 9 a.m. and that policyholder says, ooh, that's too late for me. I'm already going to be at work. The latest I can do is 8 a.m. Can you be here at 8 o'clock? If the policyholder suggests a time that is outside of our operating hours, we can still schedule that appointment. We can go complete that survey and you'll get paid for it. It has to be really led by that policyholder there. We cannot suggest an 8 a.m. time, but the policyholder can. Or maybe they can only do a Sunday. Now, we're typically closed on Sundays. You are not obligated to work on Sundays at all. But if they say, hey, the only thing I can do is at 12 o'clock on a Sunday, if that works for you, you're not obligated to. These are the holidays that we do not work on. And as far as expectations go, your managers will expect you guys to complete 8 to 10 inspections per day, if not more, for maximum efficiency. Now, that will vary depending on your caseload. You may only get 5 or 6 done in a day, depending on the survey types you have. You may get 14, 15, 16 cases done in a day. But the goal is 8 to 10 inspections per day at minimum. Now our phone hours are a little bit different. So the field hours was 9 to 7, 10 to 4. Phone hours is 8 to 8, 9 to 5. So we just add an hour on either side there. Some of your cases will require phone calls. Some surveys we have to schedule a specific appointment. And the important thing here is we want to make sure that we're actually scheduling time to make our phone call. We don't just want to make one here in between a survey because I have an extra 3 minutes or 5 minutes. We want you guys to block out time, sit down at home in front of your computer and just make all your phone calls. And then go out in the field, or vice versa. Go out in the field, come back home, sit down for another 30, 45 minutes, an hour, make all your phone calls that day. Mix it up. Do some in the morning, do some in the afternoon, just to call at different times. But again, we want to block out that time, 8 to 8, 9 to 5, Monday through Saturday. Make those phone calls. As far as payroll goes, you guys will be paid every Friday, so we get a check every week, direct deposit, or they'll mail you one if you need it. The pay period is Monday through Sunday. Any surveys that you do within a week period there, you've got to make sure they are all turned in by Sunday, 11:59 p.m. Eastern time. That's important. So if you're in a different time zone, you're going to have to dial it back, 10:59 Central, 9:59 Mountain, 8:59 Pacific. If you want to get paid for that survey, you've got to make sure it's turned in before that time. Now, if you turn it in late, you'll still get paid for it. It's just possibly going to end up on the next pay period because we turned it in late. So just make sure that you get everything turned in on time. Also, it's important to keep a record of your time. Now, you'll be able to check that on our company website. You'll be able to see all the surveys that you've done, but keep track of it. Write it down on your phone, pen and paper, whatever you want to do there. That way you know your mileage, your drive times, your site times. You are paid based on the reports that you submit. So make sure that you record that time on each case. These are the 4 categories. Now, we'll cover these items in a little more detail in a separate video, but these are the 4 time and pay components that you're going to put on each case. So your mileage, whatever Google Maps or Apple Maps or Waze or whatever you're using, if it tells you it's 10.7 miles, you put 10.7 miles on that case. We don't want to round. Your drive time is paid. If you leave your house at 9 o'clock in the morning and you got a 47-minute drive to get somewhere, you drove 47 minutes to get to that case. Your field time, work done on site. When did you get there? When did you leave? Make sure you keep track of that so you know how long you were there. And then desk time, we talk about those phone calls. That's really kind of what desk time is. Did you make any phone calls, or did you do any work on our website? Did you do any scheduling or routing? That would all be desk time, which you kind of divvy up between your cases. So the easiest example I can think of is, let's say you wake up in the morning, you make 30 minutes worth of phone calls. You've got 10 surveys to do that day. You would essentially add 3 minutes to each of those surveys to account for that extra 30 minutes. Just make sure you track that yourself. We're not going to track it for you. You guys will fill out these case logs. And then again, to get paid for this, you got to turn those cases in. Now, as far as voicemails go, we highly encourage you guys to update your voicemail greetings if you don't have one already. It doesn't necessarily have to mention Mueller in it at all, but we do want something, right? Don't just have it be your number with no voice message. Don't just say your name and what's up, right? We want it to be professional. It's going to make your job easier. Let's reverse roles here. Let's say a field rep calls you, leaves you a voicemail to schedule an appointment. You call them back and they do not have a professional voicemail greeting whatsoever. You're probably not going to believe they're an insurance inspector. You're going to think it's a scam. Now, time and deadline, every case that you have will have a due date on it. That represents the ideal date to get that done. As a field rep, we want to make sure that we leave room for QA, a couple extra days there. We really want to try to get cases turned in by their ideal due dates. Now, those due dates are important because if we turn cases in late, it's possible that the company actually loses money. And in some cases, Mueller as a company has to turn around and give a refund back to that insurance company. So make sure you're paying attention to those due dates. Our ultimate goal is to provide the best quality survey in the most efficient time possible. Let's do a little equipment check here. If you don't have these things, make sure you've got them ordered. Make sure you've got that measuring wheel. Make sure you've got that camera pole. If you haven't already, send us your receipts. We want to reimburse you for those. So if you haven't turned in your receipts for your measuring wheel and your extension pole, your camera pole, send those to us. And this should already be in the mail to you, but these other 2 items as well, the employee badges, and we'll send you that Bluetooth clicker as well as that phone attachment for that camera pole. Just be on the lookout for it. Make sure you have them. If you do not have these top 2 items, you're going to need them right away. Your best bet is just to go in person and purchase these things. So you make sure they're in good condition. You know they work, and then you've got the receipt. You know you got them. You're not waiting on something to show up in the mail. And then also your systems. You won't be able to do any work with Mueller until you set these things up. So you've got to go on that Mueller homepage first. Instructions will be sent to you guys if you haven't gotten it already. Change your password on the Mueller website. That will automatically set up your Mueller email, your Phoenix Mobile. If you haven't done it, please do so you're able to log into these things. That we can assign you training cases and get you in the system and all that. And that's our general protocols there. So if you do have any questions at all, any more clarification on anything, please reach out to our support line. Here's our phone number. Hours of operation 8 to 7, Monday through Friday, 10 to 4 on Saturdays, Eastern time. Make sure you adjust accordingly.